Teaching the concepts of solving equations with envelopes and counters. When you introduce your students to methods of solving equations, do you use a model? Models make the mathematics concrete and help many students make sense of abstract mathematical procedures. I'll show you the models I use with my students to solve basic one-step equations like x plus a equals b and a times x equals b. The models lead students easily to the subtraction and division properties of equality. To model equations, I use envelopes, regular everyday envelopes, and counters, small plastic discs. I'm showing the counters here in blue to distinguish them from the two color counters I used for sign numbers. For this activity, I use only positive numbers, so the color of the counters doesn't matter. So how do we model an equation with envelopes and counters? The envelope represents the unknown quantity in an equation because we don't know what it contains, and each counter represents one unit. Let's suppose we have our workspace set up like this. The key assumption is that both sides of the workspace contain the same number of counters. On the left side, we have one envelope, which is the unknown quantity x, and two counters, so this side represents x plus 2. On the right side are just three counters, so this is a model of the equation x plus 2 equals 3. Here's another model. Now we have four envelopes on the left side of the workspace, so this represents 4x. On the right side are 12 counters, so we've modeled the equation 4x equals 12. So how do you solve equations with this envelope and counter model? We'll start by solving the equation x plus 3 equals 8. The method we'll use leads students directly to the subtraction property of equality. When you do this in class, you do need to set it up ahead of time. You need a total of 16 counters to model the equation x plus 3 equals 8. Put 5 counters in the envelope, then put the envelope plus 3 more counters on the left side and 8 counters on the right. Remember, both sides of the workspace contain the same number of counters. Solving the equation means we have to discover how many counters are in the envelope. We have to take away 3 counters from the left-hand side in order to isolate the envelope. But to keep the number of counters on both sides equal, we must take away 3 counters from the right-hand side too. The algebra steps look like this. So we know there must be 5 counters in the envelope. If I were doing this in class, I would now open the envelope and dump out the 5 counters. After a couple of examples in class, my students readily accept the subtraction property of equality. Now let's use the envelope and counter model to solve the equation 2x equals 6. This model will lead to the division property of equality. To model the equation 2x equals 6, we need 2 envelopes and 12 counters. Put 3 counters in each envelope, and then put the envelopes on the left side of the workspace. The rest of the counters, 6 of them, go on the right side. The model for the method of solution goes like this. Separate the 2 envelopes, then rearrange the counters to make 2 equal groups. Instead of rearrange, we could say divide, couldn't we? The algebra would look like this. So we see that since each group has 3 counters, each envelope must contain 3 counters. We open the envelopes to show that they do in fact have 3 counters each. We have found that x equals 3. Seeing examples work this way helps students understand the division property of equality. Why are these good activities to help students learn how to solve equations? The envelopes and counters give students a concrete model of an equation, complete with the unknown quantity hidden in the envelope, and of the steps to take to solve the equation. Rather than relying on a memorized series of steps, students can visualize what they did to discover the number of counters in the envelope. The model emphasizes that whatever you do to one side of an equation, you must do to the other side. Now, maybe you're wondering how you might use the model for equations like x minus a equals b or x over a equals b. Well, I found that I don't need to model those. After modeling several equations that use the subtraction property, my students are ready for the addition property without a model. And the same thing happens when transitioning from the division property to the multiplication property. Here are some suggestions for using envelopes and counters with your students. Using this model does require you to do some preparation before class. When I start the first lesson on solving equations, I tell my students it's like solving a puzzle. We have to discover the value of the variable that makes the equation true. I come to class prepared with the models of a few equations of the type x plus a equals b, with the solutions, the right number of counters, in the envelopes. I use the classroom projector to show the models and the methods for solving the equations. After working a couple of examples, I like to ask for a student volunteer to create a model of an equation, which I put on the projector and solve with the class. Then I have my students work in pairs. One partner will set up the model of an equation, and the other partner solves it. I have them write each equation and the steps they take to solve it in words and in algebra. Where can you find the manipulatives for these activities? When I first started using this model, I used paper clips instead of counters. Paper clips and envelopes are standard office supplies and readily available to teachers. The counters I've shown in this video are available at teacher supply stores or through catalogs. The National Library of Virtual Manipulatives has an equation activity, but it uses a balance model. Many people like using the balance model, but I like envelopes and counters better. At the Explore Learning website, you will find a cup and counter model very similar to our envelopes and counters. Explore Learning calls their manipulatives gizmos. The website allows you 5 minutes of free use and a 30-day free trial period. Their one-step equation model actually uses two-color counters and could be used to demonstrate both the addition and subtraction properties of equality. They use cups and counters to model solutions of two-step equations. The full website of their activity is shown here. You model a given equation by dragging the cups and counters onto the workspace. This is what the model for the equation 7 equals 2x plus 1 looks like. To solve the equation, you click on a counter and remove it from the workspace. After there are only cups left on the right-hand side and no more counters there, you drag the remaining counters from the other side onto the cups to find the solution, x equals 3. I hope you found this lesson worthwhile and are willing to try using the envelope and counter model with your students. This is Mary Ann. Goodbye.